think that's one of the dangers of the word theme is, people think, well, it's a cowboy theme, so let's bring everything in that has to do with cowboys. And as designers, you've got to learn how to edit. All right. Hello, everybody. We're back.
Hey.
Episode 4.
I'm Joe
Todd
Mathis.
This is Joe Mathis.
Yep. Speak on top of each other.
Yeah.
Break all the rules.
What's new? We're going to talk about graphics and color in an event today.
Color is one of my favorite subjects because I think it's one of your favorite subjects, I guess. You are so good at color.
I do like color. As you say,
you see all the colors.
Let me say I see like a million colors or something.
You see way more color than anybody.
You're gonna put that in the
there's gray or gray, and Todd's like, oh no, that's like light gray, softer gray, warm gray. Like, no, they're both exactly the same color. So I used to think I saw a lot of color. I took the color test, and yeah, we'll do that. And I thought I saw a lot of color, but nothing compared to Todd. He's very much into color. So how do we decide color for an event? When you start thinking about what colors to choose, how, if you're doing a conference or a party or graphics or any special event, where do you go for color? Where do you decide, hey, this is the colors I'm going to go? What's some first ideas? What do you think of?
I a lot of times go with the, if it's a corporate client or an established organization, a lot of times they have a corporate color or a logo or something that I like to bring into the event somehow. We've done events for clients where their primary color is pink, and of course we bring that pink color into the event, or we'll work with another client, their color is red, and so we bring in the red, and it's got to be just the right red for their logo. And I think that's at least a first step. Another thought is to think about what's the feeling of the event want to be. Does it want to be a warm feeling? Is it inviting and comfortable, or is it more of a electrifying and kind of get people moving, active type of an event? Those kinds of decisions can affect what colors you use for your decor.
I remember thinking about warm colors and cool colors. I attribute that to my mom. She was back when I was in junior high or whatever, she was real into, she called it color coding, where like I think their colors were like summer, winter, fall, spring colors, and she was an autumn or whatever. She was a fall. She liked autumn colors, and she looked really good in them. And I remember working with her a lot on understanding there's a warm red and there's a cool red. And rather than, some people think all reds are cool, and that's not true. There's warm and cool. And I think for her, she always said if you stayed in the same season, kind of the same warms or cool tones, then you a lot of times couldn't go wrong. And she, of course, obviously loved color wheel and color blocking, color matching, even back then. And I learned a lot from that. I've thought about that a lot, and I've noticed that with you, Todd, that one of the things I really like when you start talking color is that you're not afraid to add additional colors. And we talk about some of our clients, especially when we have a corporate client that has a certain color scheme or a certain color they use, a specific color. I've liked it when you're not afraid to add maybe a little tone of something else in there, just to kind of freshen it up a little bit or brighten it up. That's always really cool to me. And I can be hesitant to do that. I can be hesitant to add color, and I like that you're bold to bring in a color that I would not think of. So, of course, I think the clients are a lot of fun, are where we really start at ground zero with, is that the right term? But basically start at the beginning, and we can decide anything. Every color is an option. And what do we do? What's the best way to do that, Todd, when you have the sky's the limit sort of thing on a design or a color or a theme, a concept? Where do you start with that? How do you decide? You start with a concept? You start with colors? What's that look like for you?
We work with a graphic designer on a lot of our projects. Hopefully, ideally, most of our
Hopefully all
projects
of our
are
projects. Yeah.
with a graphic designer. Um, some lower budget ones we don't, but no, our preference is to work with a great graphic designer that we start with them, really even brainstorming at the very beginning of a planning process of an event. We start brainstorming with them about what we want the look and the feel of the event to be, and what's the concept, the design concept that we want to convey with this event. And they will a lot of times just brainstorm right along with us, coming up with the concepts and ideas, and then they'll go away and come back with a kind of a basic concept or a logo for the event to convey the look and the feel of what we're trying to achieve with the event.
We do start a lot of times with fabric samples or paint colors. We'd have a box of paint colors in the office that just paint swatches. We'll go through them and just kind of think through color. We also have a billion tablecloth samples. Some of them no longer available, but I insist on keeping them around. Todd wants to throw them away all the time, but I insist on keeping them around because I think even just to sometimes even choose texture. And I think of the client a few months ago that we were trying to communicate the elegance of an event and the sophistication of it. And it was a really, really hard concept to communicate. And until I brought out, I just ran in the other room and kind of grabbed a charger. We have a lot of charger samples and also grabbed some fabric samples. And just I pulled out 5 fabric samples and said, here, this is what I'm thinking. And even though the fabrics we chose were probably out of their budget, it still, I think, really communicated what we're thinking of. And that actually led to the event design and the concept of where we're going with that. And our original graphic was kind of a different color, different tones. And through that, hey, here's 5 fabric samples. Let's think about that. Kind of led to something different. And not that we'll end up with any of those fabrics on the tables in the end. I think it was a great starting point. I also
we
I love
actually
to
took we actually took one fabric sample and took the Pantone app and scanned a sample and took pieces of color out of that fabric sample. And we sent that on to our graphic designer saying, hey, this is the palette that we want to use for this event. And it was perfect for him because he's able to just pull those color swatches right out of that Pantone app and incorporate those into the design of the event.
We are big on Pantone color. Pantone color matching system is great. We have the Pantone charts in our office. There's the app that's amazing that you can pull up colors and figure out what the close to the shades of what they really are. And we pretty much always make sure we have a Pantone color with our inks so that things match from the printer. We know they're going to match our tablecloth and kind of match the same look. So really, really big. I think part of that comes from your background in graphics, and you grew up around Pantone colors, and I think that was something I learned about pretty early in my life as well. And I think we just naturally brought that to the event world, which obviously Pantone color is all about graphics, but I think thinking about that transferring on to flowers and that sort of thing. I also have a chart of flowers of shades and colors. It's a little booklet. In fact, it's behind you somewhere now. I think it's on another shelf, but it's a pretty cool little thing that you just kind of pull it out and thumb through it and kind of go, oh, these are great colors to use in flowers or florals and so if we have that with our Pantone colors, our PMS colors, and then our fabric samples, then we're good to go. So let's talk about graphics though. Todd, I know you have a lot of opinion. You have a lot of opinions on color. You have a lot of opinions on graphics. This really should be, this is Todd's opinions show because this is his opinionated areas. I mean, not he's opinionated a lot of things, but definitely on colors and graphics. So let's talk about how do we get to a graphic place? How do you start figuring out what the graphic elements look like and hiring somebody to do that, or if you don't have them on staff, choosing a graphic designer? What's all that look like in your thinking?
But I mean, you're right. I do have, I do have a lot of opinions about graphics. I actually grew up in the graphic design business because my dad was a graphic designer. As I grew up, and I kind of grew up around the whole thing with the press on letters, and doing that as I
Me too.
was a kid. Even did renderings for him and developed logos and that kind of thing. And so I have that kind of, if you will, in my blood. Um, even with the architecture design training that I had, we had, of course, graphic design classes that we had in art. And so I have a lot of opinions about design and balance and color theory and that kind of thing. So that's just gone. I have a lot of history in that realm.
So
Um,
I think about clients who come to us who know, we have an annual event that we do that is one of our favorites, that has kind of, we call them event chairs. They're really not event chairs. They're more like event hosts. And, we try to design a look and concept based on their thoughts and what they like. And this year was really fun because it was in that conversation. She said, I like all the colors, and we could do a lot of really fun stuff with that. This year was a lot of really cool things. Um, there's an antiquated word, I believe, called theme. A lot of times when people think of theme, they think of a theme party, which just makes me cringe, whether that be a Western theme or whatever. It just kind of scares me a little bit. I think I had a mentor one time who talked a lot about, if you have to go with a theme, you're going to definitely go with a Western party. You're going to go with a Renaissance party. You're going to go with whatever. Uh, write down. She was really strong on make a list of all the cliche words that come to your mind when you hear that theme word. So if it's a Western, maybe you think of cowboy boots, cowboy hats, bandana, checkered tablecloths, whatever. Write down all those cliches, and then try to pull some things out that are not part of those cliches. And I'm also a big paper person. I like to look at papers, paper samples, textures, but also books. And I might buy books. I might go to Amazon, just, hey, search Western or search cowboy or search whatever, and just see what books come up. And so a Western party could easily turn to, a Hollywood Western glam of the 1940s or whatever, with sequins and fringe and all that sort of thing, and totally stray away from what a lot of people think of as a Western party or a cowboy party or whatever. Or the same thing with the Renaissance. What if you just took a little piece of that and ran with that design concept? So Western could also be turquoise or silver, or think about a belt buckle, and not go all the way with checking all the boxes, but just using an element of that into the design. And
yeah, I
I,
think
I learned a
that's
lot with that.
I think that's one of the dangers of the word theme is, people think, well, it's a cowboy theme, so let's bring everything in that has to do with cowboys. And as designers, you've got to learn how to edit your design
Edits.
and only put in things that are appropriate and that match and coordinate with the look and feel that you're intending for the event to have. And it just gets overloaded and corny and just too much if you're putting everything you can find that has to do with Western into an event. Um, and hopefully, we as designers can help elevate events through our design sense and bringing appropriate elements of that theme or design concept to an event.
I think as event designers, you have to worry about, be concerned sometimes with communication to your clients using certain words. I know we got in trouble a couple of months ago because we were trying to convey a mid-century modern feel, and I was wanting greens and blues, and we were looking at a venue that had a very mid-century modern feel to it, and we're trying to communicate that, like, Jackie Kennedy, and really trying to draw an image. Well, the words I used were Mad Men and some stuff that I thought translated to my friends, and it really put up a roadblock, really a mind block for our client. We actually ended up throwing the whole theme out, the whole design concept out, because of the way I communicate it. And I take a lot of of thought into how I communicate things, and I was just kind of brainstorming with them. I thought I was on the right track. I thought we were. I had one person in the room that was really reading well. She was really on board with me, and then I didn't realize I was completely alienating my others because of the word choice. And so, I think even with a mid-century modern theme, you got to be careful. There's so much cool about it, but I think to say, let's bring back the sophistication of an era, and maybe talk about the sleek lines or something. And kind of same with Art Deco. I think we've had a lot of Art Deco parties in our history, and and they start feeling all the same. It's like, is this a 1920s Art Deco, 1930s Art Deco? Where does this, what's this look like? And I think trying to really narrow that down and make sure we're communicating what we want to communicate with the sophistication of it or whatever. The other thing I like to do a lot with the design concept is really think through a word bank of words and your words to communicate to our client, to their board, to whoever the decision makers are, and even then to our we'll a lot of times make a mood board or something that we're passing around to our obviously our graphic designer, but then our florist or anybody else who's involved in the look and design of things, the props or costuming, whatever you've got going on. And so with that mood board, we can a lot of times bring in some elements and say, this is definitely what we're thinking, what we're looking at, and then with that I like word clouds. These are the words. So, again, if you're using a Western theme, to bring in the word sophistication changes that Western look, and I think that helps you to go away from, dirty cowboy boots, where you can go with, oh, the cowboy boots have sequins on them. If we have, sophisticated cowboy boots or whatever, and I think that's an important thing too. Is what's and with those words, I like to think about feelings and emotion. What do I feel when I walk into that room, and what does that, or when I open that invitation, what do I feel? What's that communicate? Is it communicating sophisticated event? Is it communicating fun? Is it communicating something new, something different? Is it communicating excellence or stewardship or thriftiness or and I think all those are important, but I think we definitely have to start with those goals in the design process and in the graphic design process and in the event design process, as well as choosing color. There's also even in colors, I think of, there's a sophisticated red, and there's a fun red, and there's a rah red, and there's a fast red, and there's a slow red. And if you think about it, if you do see a lot of color, you can probably imagine some of those in your mind. And I think that's an important part of the event process, is figuring out what those words are and how do you describe it. Is it happiness, or is it somber, or is it serious? We're going to have a serious rollout, or we're about to combine our company with another company, and so we're going to combine our two colors together for this event. And we want it to be exciting and motivating. We want it to be encouraging. We want to be hopeful, even though maybe one company's not doing as well or whatever. We've worked through that before with people. So I think the ideas are, if we can again start somewhere with color, start with either someone's favorite colors or something that's pulled out of somewhere, a book or a magazine or a tablecloth sample, even Pinterest. If there's, I love Pinterest. Pinterest is great. There's lots of good stuff there. I think sometimes for people it can be a little overwhelming, a lot of things there. And so I tend to think Pinterest is kind of a, in the process down the road. It's not the very beginning. So I really like to do the other things first. I like to develop words. I like to get some basic concepts down, and then always turn to the internet, turn to the Pinterest later. But that's kind of my thoughts. So, what's the one thing you feel like you should avoid in a graphic choosing? Or I know we've had this conversation this week with a client about kind of the graphics package and how that differs from just a logo design or a look design. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit about that and help us understand that a little bit better?
I was thinking about we were talking earlier about what colors we would avoid in an event.
Yeah.
And the one of the one of the colors that I tend to avoid is greens. Greens are really hard to match just between one medium to another, especially you get an olive green versus a forest green, and you've got a
Celery
Kelly
green.
green versus a lime green, and they just clash, and um, just they're just so many shades of green and varieties, and so I tend to stay away from greens myself, and then also just green lighting also always makes your food look terrible. Ends up having a gray steak and just kind of a colorless plate when you have green lights. So that's another thing to keep in mind is stay away from green lighting
You,
in
you said
general.
you touched on lighting, and I think that's an important thing too, is to realize all your color comes from lighting. And again, I think that's something I really appreciate about you, Todd, is that you are really willing to hang in there with that lighting designer, with that lighting technicians,
Yeah, Joe usually
and
leaves it up to me to
I just get
handle the lighting guy.
real over it real fast and move on to something else. And I think part of it is like for me, it's like, yeah, that's okay, just do whatever, and then I'll hate it later. But I don't have the patience to sit and really go through like, let's just a little bit lighter, a little bit redder. And Todd really has that kind of patience. And I think you've got to have that. If you're an event planner who you're working solo or you're working on your own, first of all, get a lighting designer you really trust. Make sure you've got someone that you know does a great job. And we know several. We're really fortunate to know several incredible lighting designers. I've got a
We
couple
work
that
with some
I
great lighting
really
designers.
trust. Yeah. And there's some people I really trust because I know that they get it. But that also starts with that mood board. That starts with showing them the colors, the fabrics, the samples, the tablecloths, and bringing them on, months in advance to making sure they know this is the direction we're going. And then also thinking through that, what does that food look like, or can you read the program, or if we dim the lights for the video presentation or for a special moment on stage, what's the restroom look like? And I think again, I think Todd, you're really good with that.
Yeah,
So
I think that's even worth mentioning that if you have the opportunity and when you're doing a tasting even to have those colored lights in the room and set up the lighting the way it's going to be and let your guests or hosts see what the food's going to look like under that lighting. I think it's worth doing if you can accommodate that.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, hey, we are getting really low on time. We have just enjoyed this. In fact, I can see a part two of this conversation because first of all, I think it's crucial, so important part of the event planning process, the event design process.
Yeah, I want to talk about implementing that graphic design all the way through the event because there's so much to talk about there. So many opportunities to carry that theme and that look and design and feel throughout all the collateral of the event, the backdrop and the uh, photo backdrop and stage backdrop, everything.
I think in my early years, 30 years ago, I probably tended to think a event graphic was one design. I don't think I thought of it as multiple looks and feels that, maybe you have a stripe or you have something that just goes across something that's part of that event concept. And I think, we were talking this week with a client about the uh, just all the event graphic package, that entire group of things that transfers to the video, transfers to the on screen, or to a poster in the hallway, or to something that goes in the car as they leave, or whatever the cases are, registration
Thank you
materials. So
note.
yeah, thank you notes, all that. So anyway, it's been great. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, checking in. I'll tell you, it means the world to us that you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, that you like us on Apple, iTunes, and all the places where you listen to podcasts. The fact that you're reviewing us, giving us credibility, just means a lot to us. So thank you for doing that. Review us, subscribe. You're on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Follow our channel there. And I'll follow us, Phils. You can find us on our website, rumbledrum.com. There's a podcast link. You can go back and listen to more podcasts or show notes there. Lots of good tools and information. And of course, we would love it if you would find Rumble Drum on Google or on Facebook and review us and give us your input as well. So we love hearing from you. We'd love for you to email us, joe@rumbledrum.com or Todd@rumbledrum.com, and just let us know ideas you have, questions you thought, input. And again, we will continue to listen and grow and get better and have lots of fun. So we'll see you next week.
Love to answer any questions you guys have on event planning or graphics. Emails.
Absolutely. This has been fun. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great week.
All right.